everyone, this is Miss Kernodle, and this video is to help you as you are revising your Song of Solomon essay, or to just get feedback on how you did writing this character analysis essay on Song of Solomon. So let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. All right, so my big pieces of feedback for you today are to work on big revision ideas. So developing a stronger thesis is one concern. A second concern is organization at the paragraph level. And you do have a handout that walks you through the structure of an analytical paragraph, and I'll be referring to that today. Editing. So I want to talk to everyone about titles and titles in your essay, and then also what you need to include in a complete introductory paragraph. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about the squiggle marks that you might see on your essay, and finally, the importance of introducing the context of a quote and how to embed quotes. All right, so let's get started. All right, so here we have an essay, and what I'd like to point out to you in this is the thesis. It's very clear. There are some pieces missing in the introduction, specifically the title and author. So the writer would need to go back and make sure they include that. And maybe introduce the novel a little bit more, right? We just hop in here with Ruth Foster, but the writer could introduce some of the themes or the overall content gist of the novel first. All right, so, but there are clear character traits that the essay promises to investigate about Ruth Foster. So, obsessive love for her father, a deep connection to money, and a submissive nature. Okay, great. So we're contrasting that to the writer and her qualities. All right, let's take a look at some of the thesis statements that were not as clear. Okay, here when I circle this and suggest that you can improve the title, what I mean is something besides character analysis, Hagar dead versus myself. Also, we never hear her referred to as Hagar dead, although she would presumably carry that name from Pilate, but we're not sure. Make sure it's in Times New Roman as well. That's another tip. Okay, here we have, so Hagar dead is the epitome of the dependent woman. All right, so that gives us a really firm overall feel for this character. She relies on one man, so this is defining what that means, causing her eventual demise. It would be helpful in this essay to have 3 specific character elements or character traits that help us understand perhaps why Hagar dead is dependent. Okay, so let's take a look here. Milkman fights for what he wants and perseveres through the hard times. All right, so what character elements, what character traits is he displaying or does he use in order to persevere? That would be a question for that writer in the thesis. Okay, here my comments are right here. How so? So the thesis statement is presumably here. Milkman from Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, and Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon should be at the very beginning of your paragraph. And I have led very similar lives with the same struggles weighing down on us. But when it comes to the root of our morals, we are radically different. So it doesn't come out and state precisely how Milkman and the writer are radically different. And that's something that a strong thesis would need to do. Okay. So that's enough with the thesis statements. I hope you got a feel for what this essay was looking for. Let's talk about another big concept, and that is organization at the paragraph level. So we've covered thesis, now we're looking at organization at the paragraph level. I want to show you an example of doing a good job with that. Here we go. It's the same paper we're just on. Okay, so the topic sentence should clearly help us understand what the paragraph is about, what is going to be analyzed about the character. Here we have, throughout his young adult years and even into his older adulthood, Milkman was manipulated by the people he called family. And we'll learn more about how that impacts Milkman in this paragraph. So it's clearly letting us know where the paragraph is going. Let's check and see if there's a conclusion sentence at the end here. Manipulation is a very hurtful thing once the victim realizes what has been done, and it took Milkman a while to see the true motives behind his family's actions in regards to himself. All right, so it lands where it began, and we have a firm exploration of manipulation and how that has changed Milkman. Another strong example is right over here. The topic sentence is very clear. The love Ruth has for her father has made her selfish and conceited. All right, boom. We know that we're talking about Ruth and what has caused or led to some very specific character traits. Now the paragraph goes on to share some evidence and to unpack that and prove it. What I would suggest to the writer is to not end on evidence, but to write some commentary for this, explain how this proves this main point you're making, and also to have a conclusion sentence to wrap it up, to tie it up. Okay, so I saw some essays where not using the analytical paragraph structure left the writer summarizing rather than analyzing character. So let's take a look at this as an example. As the book begins, the first scene we read is taking place at the hospital called No Mercy Hospital. So here we don't have a character, and maybe one will be addressed later on, Milkman presumably, but we don't have any clear character traits, and that's really what the topic sentence should focus on. That way it forces the writer, or encourages the writer, to focus on analyzing character rather than sharing all of the events that happened. And that's where the writer ended up going in this paragraph. All right. So now let's talk about some editing tips as we're rounding out this video. I already talked about the title. Saw a lot of papers without titles, and then I saw some. This was one of the more creative, but what comes down in this smack down, right? So what values does Ruth have that the writer doesn't, and is there any way of expressing that? Here's one, but I would put a colon here and explain which character this essay is looking at. Great. And then this is a very, no offense, I don't mean to offend, but it's pretty generic, right? And maybe you've been told to have very generic titles, but I want you to break out of that. Okay, let's take a look at, complete introductions need to share the author and the title, so make sure you cover that in your first sentence. Squiggly marks are opportunities for you to read aloud and see if you can phrase in a more clear fashion or catch some grammar problems that you might be having in that moment. That moment I mark squiggly so that to alert you that it's unclear and that you probably need to revise. Okay, introduce context and embed quotes. This is a great skill to master, and I'm seeing that a lot of folks are candidates for mastering this skill. So let's take a look at that. First, I'd like to show you the essay that did a great job in this area. So I'll just read it, and you'll hear what this looks like. His mother realized that her son had never been a person to her, a separate real person. He had always been a passion, while talking to her sister-in-law, Pilot. He, to her, was a crutch. the only thing that she had for her own comfort since her father died and Macon didn't provide it to her either. Okay, so it clearly lets us know who the mother is, and it's well embedded. Okay, here we go. Not only did his mother play a major role in molding Milkman, his father did as well. While talking to Guitar, Milkman expresses, so that's good, some context here. I would encourage the writer to be more specific. While talking to Guitar, when, where were they, what was the context? Don't be afraid to share context. Daddy wants me to be like him and hate my mother. Everybody wants something from me. You know what I mean? We see here that all throughout the book, Milkman has lost his own individuality. Macon has been shoving his own feelings and beliefs into his son. So there's the commentary picking up, explaining how this quote helps support the topic sentence. All right? Good job there. Let's take a look at opportunities to embed quotes. Oh, here's another example of good embedding. Here we go. Let's take a look. Just right here, okay? The love Ruth has for her father has made her selfish and conceited. She only focuses on her personal satisfaction. Here, I really want you to stop having quotes stand on their own. The first thing that you need to do is introduce the context of the quote. So when did this happen? Okay, clearly it's the nursing scene, right? And the writer writes it down here. Ruth breastfeeds her son for her own pleasure, not thinking about the embarrassment she has brought upon her child and her family when Freddie, the janitor. Include some of this before you share the quote so we know where we're going. All right. Secondly, embed it. And what that means is introducing it so that it's within its own sentence. And you just saw an example of that. Okay, great. And here's another good example of embedding the quote into the sentence. She was dependent on Pilate and Reba, who, quote, did their best to satisfy every whim Hagar had. See how that just, the quote is short to the point, proves what the point the writer is trying to make, and the writer has embedded it in within a sentence. That's really powerful, and I want you to try to revise and get to this level. But at one time was a vain and somewhat distant creature, and not obsessive as she had grown to be with Milkman. Right? And then you put the page number at the end of that sentence. All right. So, great. And those are some examples of introducing context and embedding quotes. All right. Hopefully, you have found these 5 concerns that I saw in the papers this weekend. You understand and have seen some examples so that you're ready to revise and or just so you know where to go next time in your large essay. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.